She had never known love until the day a powerful billionaire walked into her life. One innocent meeting turned into a whirlwind of passion, secrets, and heart-stopping moments. But when her guarded heart met his relentless desire, nothing would ever be the same again. Clara Eden had never imagined her life could change in a single evening. She was 23, young enough to dream yet old enough to have tasted hardship. Her days were spent quietly, doing chores, avoiding her stepfather's angry moods, and hoping for a better tomorrow. That night, the house felt different. Her stepfather's voice was strangely calm when he called her from the kitchen. "Go change into something nice," he said without meeting her eyes. Clara frowned. "Why?" "A businessman is coming," he replied. His words were clipped, almost rehearsed, like he had been preparing them all day. She thought maybe this man was offering a job, maybe in his office or a shop. Her heart even lifted a little. She needed a chance to escape the suffocating walls of this home. She didn't own much, so she chose a soft cream dress, simple, clean, the best she had. Minutes later, the sound of tires crunching on gravel filled the air. Her stepfather's posture stiffened as he glanced out the window. A sleek black car glided to a stop in front of the house, its surface shining under the porch lights. The door opened and David Miles stepped out. Clara's breath caught in her throat. He wasn't just handsome, he carried himself with a kind of command that made the air feel heavier. His broad shoulders filled his tailored suit perfectly. Every step he took toward the house was measured, confident, as though the world bent to his will. But it was his eyes that froze her in place. Piercing blue, sharp as ice, scanning her from head to toe like they could read her every thought. She felt both exposed and oddly seen. Her stepfather's grip tightened on her shoulder. "This is Clara," he said quickly, almost nervously. "As we agreed." "As we agreed?" Clara blinked, confused. The words clung to her mind like shadows. David's gaze didn't waver. He reached into his coat and pulled out a thick envelope. Her stepfather's hands twitched as he took it, like a starving man being handed bread. The sound of paper brushing together echoed louder than it should have. Clara's stomach twisted. "What's in that?" she asked softly. Neither man answered. Her stepfather only turned his face away, refusing to meet her eyes. David's voice was calm, deep. "We're done here." Her stepfather nodded quickly, almost bowing. The exchange was too fast, too practiced. And then Clara understood. Her chest tightened as the truth slid in like a cold blade. That envelope wasn't payment for work. It was payment for her. She stepped back, shaking her head. No, this isn't—" But David was already standing in front of her, so close she could smell the faint, clean scent of his cologne. "You'll come with me now," he said. Not as a question, but as a command. His tone wasn't loud, yet it carried a weight that made it hard to argue. She looked to her stepfather, searching for a trace of guilt, some sign that he cared. But his eyes were fixed on the envelope in his hands, not on her. "You're selling me?" she whispered, her voice breaking. He didn't answer. That silence told her everything. Her knees felt weak, her heart pounding so loudly she thought David might hear it. Fear wrapped around her like cold chains. But there was something else. Something about the way his gaze lingered on her face, almost studying her. Without another word, David stepped aside and gestured toward the car. The air outside was cool, and the night sky seemed endless, swallowing her into a fate she didn't choose. Every step toward the car felt heavier than the last. Her mind screamed to run, but her body moved forward. The leather seat was cold when she sat inside. David joined her, closing the door with a soft click. As the car began to move, Clara pressed her hands together to keep them from trembling. She didn't know where they were going. She didn't know if she would ever see freedom again. All she knew was this: her life was no longer her own. And the man sitting beside her, the man with the cold blue eyes, was now the one holding her future in his hands. But what she couldn't yet see was that he had no idea how much she was about to change his life too. The car rolled up a long, winding driveway lined with tall trees. Each one looked perfectly trimmed, like it had been shaped by careful, wealthy hands. Clara sat stiffly in her seat, staring at the looming shadow ahead. David's mansion appeared like something out of a dream, or a nightmare. Its walls were pale stone, glowing faintly under warm lights. Dozens of windows reflected the night sky, making the house look like it had eyes watching her. The moment they stopped, a uniformed man opened Clara's door. She hesitated, then stepped out, her heels clicking on the polished stone pathway. The front doors were huge, carved with intricate designs, and when they swung open, her breath caught. Inside, the air smelled faintly of roses and expensive polish. Marble floors stretched endlessly, so white they almost blinded her. Above, a crystal chandelier poured soft golden light over everything. The walls held paintings in heavy frames, landscapes, portraits of people she didn't know, all staring back at her like silent witnesses. Clara's eyes darted from one hallway to another. The mansion felt endless, like it could swallow her whole. Every room she glimpsed through open doors had its own mood. Rich velvet curtains, gleaming furniture, perfectly placed flowers. But for all its beauty, it felt wrong. Too big, too quiet, too perfect, like a golden cage. Her instinct screamed to run, to find the nearest door, slip out, and disappear into the night. But where would she go? She had no money, no friends, no family who wanted her. She followed David deeper inside. His footsteps were steady, his back straight, his presence filling the space even more than the mansion did. He stopped in front of a wide staircase. "You will stay here now," he said finally, his voice low, deep, almost echoing in the vast space. "And you'll do as I say." The words made her chest tighten. She nodded slowly, pretending calm, though her fingers trembled against the side of her dress. David's eyes lingered on her for a moment longer. There was something unreadable in them, like a flicker of warmth hidden behind a wall of ice. He didn't look like he wanted to hurt her, but she refused to believe it. Men like him, billionaire CEOs, didn't care about girls like her. They took what they wanted and forgot the rest. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. It was a maid, curtsying slightly. "Shall I show Miss Eden to her room?" David gave a single nod. Clara followed the maid up the grand staircase. Her hand brushed the smooth wooden railing, and she caught herself glancing back. David still stood there at the bottom, watching her. For the briefest moment, their eyes locked. Something passed between them, something she couldn't name. And then he turned away, disappearing into one of the long hallways. Her room was at the far end of the west wing. It was large enough to fit her entire old apartment inside twice over. A massive bed with silk sheets, soft rugs, and a balcony overlooking a perfectly trimmed garden. But to her it was not a gift. It was a place she'd been put. When the maid left, Clara walked to the balcony. She gripped the railing, staring out into the night. The air was cool, the stars distant. She wondered if this was what a bird felt like when its cage was made of gold. A cage that looked beautiful to everyone else, but still had bars. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and stubborn resolve. No matter how high the walls were, she told herself, she would not lose who she was. Still, when she thought of David, of his deep voice, the way his gaze seemed to pierce her, she felt a strange heat under her skin, and that was the most dangerous part. The days in David Miles's mansion passed slower than Clara expected. She had thought he would demand her company, that he would claim her the very first night. But he didn't. Not even once. Instead, he surprised her. Every morning, a maid would bring her breakfast. Fresh bread, fruit, and coffee richer than anything she'd ever tasted. In the afternoons, she found neatly wrapped boxes left on her bed, soft dresses, comfortable shoes, even a sweater in her favorite color. Clara didn't know how he knew her favorite color. She had never told him. Once, she came downstairs to find a stack of books waiting for her on the coffee table. "Read them," David said simply when she looked at him in confusion. "They're yours." She turned the first page of the top one later that night, feeling the crisp paper under her fingertips. The books weren't business manuals or things rich people pretended to read. They were stories. Adventures, love tales, mysteries. Books she had always wanted but could never afford. It made her even more confused. If he had bought her, why wasn't he treating her like something to own? Why was he kind? But the kindness didn't make her trust him. Clara had learned long ago that people could be gentle one moment and cruel the next. She refused to let her guard down. One evening, she decided to make herself dinner. The kitchen was huge, all stainless steel and marble counters. She found ingredients in the pantry and started chopping vegetables, trying to feel normal, like she belonged in a real home. The oil in the pan sizzled as she placed the pieces in. She reached for a spoon without noticing her sleeve had slipped dangerously close to the burner. The heat flared, and pain shot through her hand as the oil splashed. She gasped, dropping the spoon, clutching her wrist. Before she could even step back, footsteps sounded behind her, quick, heavy. David. He was suddenly there, his large hand taking hers firmly but not roughly. "Come here," he said, his tone deep, commanding but laced with something else. Concern. He guided her to the sink, turning on the cold water and holding her hand under it. She winced at the sting, but the cool relief soon followed. "You have to be careful," he said, his eyes fixed on her injury. His voice had lost that detached tone she'd grown used to. It was softer now, slower. She tried to pull her hand back, embarrassed by how close he was. "I'm fine," she muttered. His eyes flicked up to meet hers. "No," he said quietly, almost like it was to himself. "You don't hurt what's yours." The words froze her. "Yours?" The way he said it wasn't like she was property. It was different, like he was claiming her, but in a way that meant protecting her, keeping her safe. For a moment, neither of them moved. The only sound was the water rushing from the tap, the warmth of his body close to hers. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. She wanted to step back to remind herself he was dangerous, but her feet wouldn't move. His thumb brushed lightly over her skin before he finally let go. "There," he said, straightening, but his eyes lingered on hers longer than they should have. It was then that she noticed something. Behind the steel of his gaze, there was a shadow, pain. Not the pain of a man burned by oil, but of someone burned by life. She didn't know what had caused it, but it was there, quiet and heavy, sitting in the depths of his eyes. And for the first time, Clara wondered, who exactly was David Miles when the world wasn't looking? The air was soft and warm that evening, the sky brushed with fading gold as the sun dipped low. David had invited Clara to dinner in the private garden, a place she had never been before. The garden was like something out of a painting. White lanterns hung from tree branches, casting a soft glow over the cobblestone path. The scent of roses lingered in the air, carried by the faintest breeze. A small table was set beneath a canopy of vines, with candles flickering in the center. David was already there when she arrived, his dark suit perfectly fitted, his blue eyes sharper than ever. She hesitated before taking the seat across from him. It still felt strange, eating with the man who had bought her. Yet tonight, something about the air between them felt different. They spoke little at first. David's gaze would flick to her every so often, his expression unreadable. When he asked her about the books he had given her, she was surprised to hear genuine interest in his voice. Halfway through the meal, the wine bottle was uncorked. David poured her a glass, the rich red liquid shimmering in the candlelight. She took a careful sip, savoring the warmth that spread through her chest. And then it happened. As she reached for the bread, her elbow nudged the wine glass. The glass tipped, the liquid spilling across the tablecloth and onto her dress. "Oh!" she gasped, instinctively grabbing a napkin to blot at the deep stain. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, her head lowered. But when she looked up, David wasn't scolding her. His gaze had locked onto her, not the stain, but her. There was a new intensity in his eyes, something that made her breath catch. He stood slowly, walking around the table. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears with every step he took toward her. When he reached her, he didn't say a word. Instead, his hand rose, and the back of his fingers brushed gently against her cheek. "You have no idea," he whispered, his voice low and rough, "how hard I've tried to stay away from you." The words slid into her like a secret she wasn't meant to hear. Her lips parted, but no sound came. And then he leaned in, closing the distance between them. His breath was warm against her skin, his scent clean and masculine, wrapping around her like an invisible hold. When his lips finally met hers, Clara froze. But only for a moment. It wasn't fear that made her tremble. It was the rush of something entirely new, a spark that began at her lips and spread through every nerve in her body. His kiss was slow, deliberate, almost reverent. not the kiss of a man taking what he had bought, but of someone tasting something precious for the first time. Her fingers curled into the fabric of his suit without thinking. She had never been touched like this, never been wanted like this. When he finally pulled away, her breath came in shallow waves. David's own breathing was uneven, his jaw tight as if holding back more than he could say. "You're mine now, Clara," he said, his voice ragged but certain. "Not because I paid for you." He paused, brushing his thumb lightly across her lower lip. "Because I can't imagine life without you." She wanted to answer, but the words tangled in her throat. All she could do was meet his gaze. And in that moment, she saw the truth. This wasn't just possession. This was something deeper, something dangerous. And she wasn't sure if she wanted to run from it or fall into it completely. The seasons seemed to shift quietly in David's mansion, though Clara barely noticed the world outside anymore. The walls that had once felt like a cage now felt different. They were still high, still gilded, but warmer somehow, because of the man who lived behind them with her. David wasn't an open book. At first he spoke in short sentences, his tone always measured, revealing nothing. But over the weeks, little cracks began to form in that armor. A lingering look. A sentence cut short when his voice threatened to break. A shadow in his eyes that stayed even when he smiled. It happened one night in the library. Clara had wandered in, drawn by the scent of leather-bound books and the soft glow of the fireplace. She traced her fingers along the spines, marveling at the vast collection. David entered quietly, carrying 2 glasses of wine. "You like this room?" he observed, handing her a glass. She nodded. "It feels safe." For a moment, he didn't respond. He simply watched her, the flicker of the fire dancing across his face. Then he sat down on the leather couch, setting his glass aside. "Safe," he repeated, as if testing the word on his tongue. "I didn't have that when I was your age." Something in his tone made her sit beside him. She waited, saying nothing, sensing that if she pushed, he would close up again. He leaned back, his eyes fixed on the fire. "My parents didn't see me as their son," he began slowly. "To them, I was an investment, a name to carry their company, a tool to grow their power." Clara's chest tightened. She had known coldness in her life, but hearing it from him felt different, like every word cost him something. "I was sent to boarding schools before I even knew how to tie my own shoes," he continued. "By the time I was 15, I knew how to negotiate a merger, but not how to have a real conversation with another person." His voice was flat, but beneath it was an ache she could almost touch. "I built my empire alone. I trusted no one. I learned that if you let people in, they use it against you." His eyes shifted to hers. "That's what I thought when I saw you." Clara swallowed hard. "What did you think I was?" He didn't flinch. "Like everyone else, something to own, control, and forget." The words hit her like a blow, but before she could pull away, his hand reached for hers. "But you weren't," he said, his voice lower now, softer. "You're stubborn. You look me in the eye when others look away. You fight me without raising your voice. You—" He trailed off, as if the next words were too dangerous to say aloud. Her breath caught. "I what?" He studied her for a long moment. "You've ruined me for the kind of man I used to be." Silence wrapped around them. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure he could hear it. "I don't want to be him anymore," he confessed. "I don't want to be the man who buys people and locks his heart away. I want to—" His hand slid to the side of her face, his thumb brushing her cheek in the gentlest touch she had ever felt. "I want to be the man you believe I could be." Clara felt the sting of tears but refused to let them fall. In that moment, she saw the truth. David Miles, the billionaire who had once seemed untouchable, wasn't unbreakable at all, and somehow she had become the one person who could break him, or put him back together. 1 month after that first night, David didn't just free Clara, he proposed to her. Not with grand speeches, but with a simple truth. "I didn't save you, Clara, you saved me." The wedding was private, surrounded only by people who truly cared. David refused to let money or power define them anymore. Their life together became proof that love could grow in the most unexpected soil, and that a person's worth could never be measured in dollars. No one should ever be bought, owned, or treated as less because of their circumstances. The real power is not in wealth or status, it's in choosing kindness, respect, and love over control.